All right, so this is Allison, and today we are going to give her a demonstration, and she's going to make some wedding bands. So why don't you grab a seat? You might want to put this on. It's my apron. Keep you from getting too dirty. So today, Allison is going to make two wedding bands. We're going to use this Ferris wax tube, and we're going to make a ladies band and a men's band. So this is the tube to make the ladies ring. Okay, and we need it to be a size 5, 2 millimeters. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to measure out 2 millimeters on here. So 2 lines up, but when we're going to cut it, we're going to cut it at 3 lines. Okay, so we're going to go, there's 2, I'm going to go a little bit more, and go to 3. So Allison made jewelry 30 years ago, did you say?
30 years ago.
30 years ago. And she's making wedding bands for a friend of hers, children that are getting married. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the first thing you want to do is you want to use this as stability. So we want to put this down like this, and we want to turn it. See that line? So we want to just turn it like that. Try that, hold that, and then try to turn it and put that line in. Normally, Allison works with metal, not with wax. Is that correct?
Correct. I've done a little bit of wax.
There you go. So that's your line that we're going to cut. And then what we'll do is with the saw, when we cut that, we'll cut on the inside of the tube on the line. We don't want to hit the line. We want to try, but if we did hit the line, it's okay because we made it a little bit wider. So now, does that go all the way around? Looks good. All right, that's it. So that's it with the divider. And the next step is using the saw. Let me get it for you. So this saw has a wax saw blade on it, which is very aggressive blade. You have a thin blade, which is for jewelry, and it's very flexible. The wax saw blade is like in Boy Scouts, we used to have a cable that could cut a tree down. That's the same thing. It's almost like barbed wire. So on the way down, it's fine. On the way up, it will cut. So when you go down, it's going to cut. All right. So what we want to try to do is using stability here. Yep. Yep. And then this side of the line, and just take it. And if you at some point want me to show you, I'll be happy to switch seats with you and show you. But that's good. That's the way. And using your nail is perfect. You're keeping that blade right up against your nail until you get it started. And once you get it started, you don't have to apply a tremendous amount of pressure. Put the line in and then cut it a little bit and turn. Right, exactly. Now typically this is something that should take about a half an hour to make each ring. So we're going to figure an hour to make each ring. And if it's less than that, then that's good. Now if you go off of it, it's okay because we can adjust it with the file afterwards. There's only about 5 or 6 tools to carve this wax. There's not a lot of tools that you have to use to carve this wax, which is good. That's great. So you can use the full stroke of the blade once you get all the way around. So you haven't done this for 30 years, you're doing a good job. Staying straight.
Trying my eyes aren't as good as they were 30 years ago either.
I have a visor if you need it. So this is a visor. It's 5 times stronger than your eyes. It's a number 5. And they go all the way up to a 10. A 10 is what they use for a microscope. So I use a 5 and a 7. So you're going to bring in some old gold from the grandparents, and we're going to use that gold for sentimental purposes and cast these into one solid band. I made a custom band a few months ago, and we made it all by metal, which is how you said you made the last ones you made 30 years ago. You fabricated them from solid metal. So you can hear that blades going through, which is great. And at some point, it's going to drop. So let's go up top. Here it is. So you can just set that wax down. Good. So now the next step is I wanted to use this file. This is a wax file. This is the coarse side, and this is a smoother side. And see how that's nice and smooth on that side? And what you just filed is coarse. So you want to hold it here and file it some, and then turn it, file it, turn it till we get it flat. If you turn it, what you're doing, you're keeping it from creating any flat spots, which is good. All right, I think you're there, right? Pretty close. So now I want to use this millimeter gauge right here.
Check the thickness.
And let's check how thick it is. Remember, we want it to be about 2.5 or 3 millimeters. So we're going to go this way. So we're going to count the lines. How many lines down is it?
I'm at 3.
You're at 3. So that's okay. It's better to be at 3 than to be at 1.5 because we need it to be 2. So we'll be able to shave it down when we're done. But if you go too thin, you have a higher risk of it breaking. So let's leave it at that. And now you can put the gauge down and get the ring mandrel. And let's see what size it is. So can you hold it up here? So it's a size 4.5. It just needs to go to a 5. So I had showed you there was a tool that you could use. If you didn't have a flex shaft at home, you can use this. And this has a blade on the edge. And as you turn it, the problem is it starts at a 5. So we'll have to see if this will work. If it doesn't, we'll use the flex shaft.
Now, which direction is this?
You can go both directions. But I turn it clockwise, yeah.
That's good. Break it in.
Now, when it's cast in gold, if you made it a little bit small, if you hit it with a rawhide mallet to shape it, it can stretch it up to a half a size without hurting the metal. So if it was off a little bit, you're okay. But that looks like it's working for you.
Just trying to be delicate with it.
Yep.
Because
And
it's thin.
you can rest your hand on top of the pin if it's easier, just because it's a little bit more stable. So now don't forget, we're going to turn the wax around to do the other side too. There you go. Now it's starting over again.
I'm just trying to get it to grit.
A lot of the tools that I use for wax, I also use for gold. So I change out the pan. I have a gold dust pan and a wax carving pan. So let's see what size that is now on the ring mandrel.
Made much of a dent.
Now, you're 4 3/4 now. So turn it around and measure the other side. And same thing, 4 3/4. So let's go a little bit more. What we don't want it to be is too big. Although on a wedding band, the nice part about a wedding band is you can stretch it or shrink it a little bit. About up to 1 full size actually. So if we made this and it was too big for her, we could always shrink it by compressing it.
Kind of hit like a little burr in there or something.
Yeah, it went too deep on one little section, so that's what happens sometimes. You want me to try it? Looks like you got it just about.
Yes,
So
still need to turn
I'm
it
just
around.
gonna see that went. Once I got rid of that little burr, it went. So now we're actually a 5 1/4. So that's fine. We can shrink that down afterwards. Now, one of the things that we can do is if this was too big at the end, let's say it went to a 5 1/2, we can cut the wax and then we can squeeze it together and melt it, and it's one band again. So we're gonna leave it at this 5 1/4 right now, and we're gonna move on to the next step. And the next step is cutting it down. So the best way to cut it down is you're gonna use the dividers, and we're gonna trace a line from the outside. You see how it's too far? It's too close to the edge here. We want it to come up to almost halfway.
Okay.
All right? So we're gonna adjust this like that. And now we're creating that line. So let's do that line all the way around on both sides. There you go.
Can I do it down here?
I think so. For me, it's more stable that way. And this is creating a line for you to know where to stop, and so that it's even all the way around. Good. And just do it the other side. Yep.
Is that deep enough?
Yep. You only want to be able to see the line. The line doesn't need to do anything more than that. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to start filing it. So you're going to use that file. And every once in a while you're going to get some wax in the file and you'll feel it where it's not cutting as well. And you just clean it off. I'll get you a brush. So remember what we're talking about is that we're going to keep this going over, right? And by doing that, you're not going to have any flat spots. And then you're turning the ring at the same time, which is good. And this is going to take a few minutes. We're going to file all the way around, all the way down to that line. We'll do one side, flip it over the other side, and back and forth.
Now, should I go completely down on one side or kind of shift in between?
Shift in between, and we have to also take the center down. Even though we want it to be rounded, we don't want it to be that much rounded. Unless you want it to have a higher dome. That's just for thickness. But it depends on her engagement ring. You don't want it to be up higher than her engagement ring. So typically you would want to not have the center dome as high. That's good. It's good. You're turning that file over. I think one of the biggest problems people have are those flat spots that we talked about. And trying to even those out without creating thin areas. So just take your time. So after we're done this, we're going to sprue them up to be cast into golds and then put them in the oven. So after a while, you can lay the ring down and take a look to see if there's any areas that are thinner and thicker. So it's thinner down here, but you are working your way towards it. So just start here and keep going. Good. And keep turning. So what do you think?
I like it.
Compared
Makes
to...
me want to get back involved in it.
Yeah, that's good. You're doing a good job. This is it's a nice practice. So why don't we flip it to the other side and do it? There we go. So Allison's husband was the architect that helped me build this garage and studio. That's how we met a few years ago. And he said, you know, my wife used to make jewelry. And I never knew whether I was going to have you come and do this, so that's kind of neat.
I made our own wedding bands.
You did?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
31 years ago.
But you made them directly from metal, not with wax.
Right.
So the one thing that's good about wax is that when you're filing, you're not losing all this metal. When you're filing metal, you're losing all the metal and it doesn't file nearly as fast. You would be starting with a thinner piece probably too. I'm going to grab that paper with the information. I'll be right back. Can I take a look? Sure. See that you're almost on the line. That's very good. You can use the other end, which is a little more aggressive, and it'll take it down a little bit more. So the one reason why we want it to be thicker like this as you're working on it is because wax is soft, you have a higher risk of it breaking while you're working on it. So that's why we went with 3 millimeters instead of 2. So we'll shave it down when we're done to the 2, which will be less risk. And we'll make it a tiny bit bigger than 2, just because after we cast it, we still have to file and sand it and polish it. No, it's looking pretty good. Compare it to this. Remember to bring that file around a little bit more because you're going to get some flat areas. I don't think I need to be telling you that, but I'm telling the people that are watching.
Never hurts for me to hear it too.
Alright, we'll take a look. Looks like you hit the line all the way. Well, very, very close. You got a little raised area right there, and a little raised area right here. And this side is really close. So let's hit it a little bit more on there. Keep it moving. And then I want to switch seats with you for a minute. I want to show you something that I think might help. Not help, it's not doing bad, but it's going to show you the next step. So instead of me switching, I'll show you. So if you take the ring now, it might be too, but you have that line here, right? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll hold it like this. Oops, that's all right, I get it. Hold it like this and then come across, going like this. So I'm still keeping the blade moving, right? Then I turn it a little bit more, turn it a little bit more. See that? So you can try that and put it on your finger and use the bench pin for stability.
And should I be using the thinner, the softer, or the more aggressive one at this?
Whatever
case?
you feel. You still have plenty of room to go, so you can use a more aggressive one. But you can switch off after you feel like you've made it around. See how that's taking that raised area out of the center?
Actually, I think I feel more comfortable in my hand than with the delicateness of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's whatever you feel best, you know. But the stability of the bench pin keeps it from moving around too much and having a risk of it breaking or anything like that. One day I gave a man a ring. I made him this wax, and I did all this work on it, and he took it in his fingers, and it broke in 3 places.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh my God, the amount of hours I put into making that, and it just broke just like that because he didn't realize that it's a soft material. So now I learned that lesson and explain to people before I put it in their hand not to squeeze it, not to press down on it. All right, let me take a look. So shortly we're going to try. So when I turn it like this, it looks good, right? And then I'm going to turn it and I see a little low right there. This whole side is lower than this side. So if you, instead of here like this, if we turn it at an angle, you're going to get it just a little bit. That's it. You know, it doesn't take much. Now I'm going to go to the softer side now, and I'm turning it quite a bit to try to blend everything. That looks great. What do you think? Here, go ahead and clean it up a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a comfort fit on the inside. And then we'll work towards the cleanup and the next one. It looks great. Can I take a look? So there's a few areas there, little flat spots, see that? So we'll even that out when we do sandpaper. So right now, let's see, thickness wise, it looks good all the way around. This is a little thinner here, and this is up here. So we can just take that down a little bit. And you see, I'm turning. And it takes away anything thin, any flat spots. The longer strokes. And turn around, same thing. So now, do you like that dome, or do you want a little bit more dome?
Maybe a tiny bit more, because she does have that diamond that you want to.
So we can go on the edge and create that roundness, and then turn around. See, I'm turning it. I'm not doing longer strokes, I'm just doing a little bit, but I'm very, very light on the holding the file. Not having her ring makes it a little bit more difficult because not knowing the exact curvature of her band. So I go here, a couple strokes, there, a couple strokes. Now, see how this is rounded on the inside? So we can round the inside edge like that to make it comfort fit, but I think it would be very nice to create a line on the inside. So holding this on the inside, I'm closing this down quite a bit, so it's only a little bit, and then we put one on the inside and create the line and just turn the wax. So I'm holding the graver still, I'm not moving the graver, and I'm just putting that line in. And basically, I'm going to remove that line with a file when we're done. But this way, it shows you when you're creating that curve on the inside, it's the same thickness all the way.
It's so delicate.
Yeah. All right, so now you see the line that I put on? So what we want to do is we want to take this and I would have it at an angle. And then you're going to file it, and then you'll turn it, file it, and turn it all the way around until you get to that line. questions? So I'm going to use a visor and take a look at how far along. That looks great the way you're doing it. It looks really good. Really, really good. Nice and well-rounded. So you want to go a little bit more to hit that edge, like I talked about. And keeping the band moving is good, and then taking the bigger strokes so that you don't have any flat spots on the inside. She's going to be thrilled.
They're very excited. And it's nice because it's a young couple.
All right, so let's see. That looks great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use this emery paper, and I'm going to have you, as if you were filing, but you're going to sand it now. The same rounded strokes, on your finger, and that will take out any file marks and hopefully any flat spots. The cleaner that you can make the wax, the less filing and sanding you have to do. Well, at least the less filing you have to do when it's cast into gold. And the key is to not have to file too much, because that's a waste of the gold. That's great. It's coming along. You got a few more, a little bit more. But keep it going the way you had it, so it keeps that roundness, and just work on a few little file marks. And keep it turning. Isn't that nice? See, you could do this for a living.
Love it. It's a great way to not have to go shopping for people's gifts.
Yeah, you just make them for them. There's a casting company that I use. If I'm only casting a couple pieces, it's really great to be able to send out pieces to be cast. While I'm working on something else, they'll be casting my piece for me and I get it back and then I just have to clean it up and it's finished. The company is called Zero Porosity in Massachusetts. And they'll cast it for you, but they supply the metal. So if you're trying to use your own metal, then you have to cast it yourself. But if you can use their metal, then they'll cast it for you. So it saves about 10 hours of actual work preparing it and casting it. Can I take a look? I think we got it. I mean, it's really great. Nice curve, even. Looks really very, very, very good. So, and the inside looks great. Nice and rounded. So, let's go ahead and see how thick it is. So, it is 3 millimeters. And then I turn it. 3 millimeters. We want it to be 2. So the next step is you're going to file it flat. Going back to the no, we're going to use this file. But this is the smoother side. You want to use the smoother side and count the strokes. So let's say you do 12 and then turn it over and do 12 on the other side. Good. So now, how wide is it now? You might have to do the exact same thing again. Yep, you gotta do the same thing again. You got about 1/4 millimeter down, maybe half. So we're good. Let's do 12 more on each side.
Someone has a question about your visor. You want to explain it again?
Sure. So this is a head visor. It is 5 times stronger than your eyes. And you can change this glass plate to get a 6 or a 7. If you go all the way up to a 10, it's the same power as a microscope. So microscope to grade stones and things is a 10. But 10 is very hard to work with. This is a 5 right here, and it's 5 times stronger. So if you wore eyeglasses, a lot of times people wear reading glasses and they do 1 times or 2 times, or even 3 times. Well, this is 5, and I also have a 7. Those are the 2 I wear all the time. And my 7 is right here, and it's a different color. So that this one's black and this one's green, and that way I know this is a 7 when I pick it up.
And how do they help you work?
You can see the fine lines in the wax or in metal. And so that you want to get those out before you polish, and that way you don't have any streaks or any fine scratches. It's a great way to check your work up close. All right, so let's see what the width is now.
Gone down much.
2.5, and turn it, measure it again. Yep, that's good. You're being nice and even. You can do it one more time. If it's 2 1/4, that's okay. Remember, we just don't want to go down to below 2. I like how you're turning that. You're turning the band as you're cutting. That's really great. Two and a half. Once you get used to it, you would cut through it pretty fast. It's just that you're being
A little delicate.
which is good. It's better safe than sorry, right? Especially after all the work of making it.
Too delicate.
You're at 2 1/2. So go 12 and 12, and then we're going to sand it. And I'm going to show you a different way to sand it than you did a minute ago. Now by doing it evenly, and now that looks really good. Let's see how wide is that. That's really good. That's like 2 1/4. All right, now get the sandpaper stick, and I want you to rest it up here. You can hold it in your hands, but what I do is I put it on here like this, and I'm gonna slide it to get. But I have to turn it, slide it. Turn it, slide it, and basically see how it made a white film and it's getting out all the marks. So I want to have you do it on the other side, and do 3 or 4 strokes, and then turn it 3 or 4 strokes.
Can I try to turn it as I'm doing it, or
Well, yes,
does that make
but
it a
you're
little bit more difficult?
well. When I do it, I'm putting it down like this, and I'm putting my fingers on top.
Okay.
It's
a little more pressure.
a little more pressure, and then turn it, and then a little more. See, that's less risk of the wax breaking too. So let's turn it over and try the other side, because I only did a little bit. Okay. So you can blow it off. can use this old toothbrush. Take this toothbrush and just clean off any wax off of it. So can you grab that tube down there? Remember what it used to look like. And now you've got a beautiful band, cut down quite a bit. And I think that's ready to go. It's nice and heavy. It'll be it'll last the rest of their life. Absolutely beautiful. What, see that rounded edge? Made that nice rounded edge for a comfort fit. Both sides. All right, and what millimeter have we got? 2 1/4, that's perfect. Because after it's cast, it has to be filed and sanded and polished, which will bring it right down to a 2. It'll be good. You want to work on the next one?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So set this one up here, and that one's done. And after we're done with this, we're going to sprue it to get it ready to cast. All right, so the next one, we're going to have to go with a bigger wax tube. So this one, you need to go 4 millimeters. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 5. Because the men's band is going to be 4 millimeters. And it's a size 10. So we have to cut, instead of a size 5, we have to go all the way up to a 10. And you're going to have to go to 5 millimeters. So you're going to use this gauge and open the dividers to 5 millimeters. It only needs to be 4 millimeters, remember, but we want to have it to 5 so that we have room to cut it down at the end, which will make it nice and thick. Let me see. That's good. All right, so what happened was that it didn't open. Now it's open all the way. So no, we went a little too far, but it's the gauge. Probably needs to be oiled. So that's 6. There's the 5. So it's right on 5. We're gonna go a little bit less because it needs to be 4. So I did at 4 1/2. Okay? So we're going to trace that line again. Good. So now you need to take the saw, using your fingernail to create that line. Get on. So you want to be on this side of the line, just a tiny bit. Everybody always comments on my fingernails. But you use the fingernails to pick up little stones, and I use the fingernails to guide my tools. So kind of need to keep a little bit of it, or I'll cut my finger instead. I'd rather scratch my nail a little bit.
Do you find it's easier to roll this in one direction versus the other as you're cutting?
Well, so when you're coming down, you're bringing wax down. So the wax is going to be here, so it should be turned this way instead. But you want to leave, don't turn it too far, too fast, because you want to keep the blade hanging in the bottom of the groove you already cut. So just a little turn at a time, make that line go a little further until you get the line all the way around, then you can go at it and bear down a little bit. So can I show you something? You want to switch seats for a second? I'm gonna sit down here and show you something. When once you have that groove that you found, right? You're going like this, but this is a long blade. So you can use the whole length, and it's gonna hit my finger on that top. And then once you're in there, now it's deep. See how deep it is?
Yeah.
Now I just turn it a little bit. And go deep. Turn it a little bit. So now you don't have to worry about it slipping out because you go down, see that slipped away because I wasn't in a groove. But if I had stayed down and I'm in the groove, now I turn it a little bit and I'm right back in it. So I'm using the full length. You can finish cutting through. One thing is that wax is very forgiving. If you slip, we have plenty of room. We're going to be filing down anyway. Oh, there you go. You're cutting through. It's about to drop. Perfect. So we're going to take the file, which is here, and we're going to make it nice and smooth. The other side is already smooth. And we went an extra 1/2 millimeter or so we have plenty of room to do what you're doing without risking making it too thin. So let's check the thickness of the band. Hold it up here so you can see better.
Just a shade under 5.
And that's good. Because that gives us room at the end to cut it down a little bit, right? All right, so now you're going to use this and size it. And you're going to size it all the way to a 10. So you can put your hand up here for stability. Once you get it started, see this wax, when you buy it, it starts at a 4.5, and that's what this tube, the mandrel is. This mandrel that has the blade on the edge is a 4.5. So, but you're gonna go all the way down to a 10. I'll be right back. Grab something.
Sometimes it's slippery.
we doing?
A little slow start. Kind of getting into little burrs. Is there a good trick to make
Well, unfortunately, there you go. You're down a little bit. So let's switch again. I'll help you. I'm not a fan of this tool because it catches.
Yeah, that's
And it also, you try to bear down and you can't cut through it. So let's see, you have to force your way through it. And so I'll hold the whole ring in my hand like that and just try to turn. Now I've gone from here all the way already. I need to go up to 10 right here. I'm going to take it off and I'm going to switch it around. Nice thing about this tool is that it makes it perfectly round. So we're going to have a nice round ring. When you try to use a bit like this and ream it out, sometimes it doesn't make a perfect circle, where this will make a pretty much perfect circle. So I'm just turning it. We're almost to an 8. Turn it around. See, it's only 7.5. So as that goes smaller, it's an 8, just like that. I'm noticing my thumb is holding the top as it's cutting through that blade right there. It's a 9, almost there. Once you get used to it, it's fine, but it's very, see how thick these pieces are? It's very aggressive. So it's cutting, and you gotta try to hold on to it. And if the wax was too thin, if we had cut the wax on the outside, it would break doing this. So I'm thinking we're real close. Even though it's above, I think we're really closer than it looks. So let's get the ring mandrel. Trying to be as gentle as possible right now. All right, what do we got? So slide down, push down. So it's a 9 3/4. Turn it around. 9 3/4. So you can go a little bit more, but the last one I went a little bit more and it went too far, just like that, remember? Now it says 10. That's good. So when we hammer it round, it's gonna expand it about 1/4 size. So we're between a 9 3/4 and a 10. So that's perfect. That's good. So the next thing is to create the outside line that we did before with the divider.
And how far in, or is that more of an eyeball thing? That
I normally go about halfway in, but maybe a little bit more than half, because you're gonna round it. That looks good. So, yeah, we just go all the way around. Try to hold that same angle. And then you'll flip it and go all the way around on the other side too.
have I gone in? Is it too far in there?
Yeah, that's a little bit, so the nice thing is that, so let's go a little bit less. And the nice thing is that just don't pay attention to that line.
Right.
All right, let's see now. Remember, when we shave it thinner, instead of 5 millimeters to 4 millimeters, it's gonna make it thicker. So we're gonna go. all the way around. So now, this is something that I would do. And what I would do is I would try to use a saw, but I would change my saw blade to a metal saw blade because it's not as aggressive as a wax carving saw blade. So can I show you?
Sure.
I'm not going to cut the whole thing, but I'm going to cut a little bit of it and show you. So, we've got a regular, where's the saw blade I had? There it is. Alright, so this saw blade is very thin. It's almost like a hair. Can you see that, Ellie?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so we're going to take this heavy, coarse blade off. And this doesn't bend like that. It's much thicker and coarser. And we're going to change it. So using this visor, I can see the teeth are going up. I don't want the teeth going up. I want the teeth going down. So I'm going to turn it around. That way on the downstroke it cuts. Now the teeth are facing up. I'll put it in. Tighten it here. And then using my chest, I want to push in a little bit because I want some tension on the blade. So if I did it like this, there would be too much movement, see? So I want to put a little tension on. You know that, right?
Did you do the ping test? Yeah.
Yep, we can play the instrument later. So now, I don't want to go all the way to the line, but I'm going to cut in, straight up and down. And one of the keys is to keep this straight up and down, not like this and not like this. So I like having it in this groove cutting area. And I started right there. And I'm going to go 3/4 to that line. And then I'm just going to cut it. And if you could see the tension on my hand, I am barely pushing this blade. Just letting the blade itself cut. You see that? So basically the line that you put, I cut it and I split it. I split it in the middle between the top and that line. So right in the middle is where I'm doing it. It's almost a secondary line, all right? If you wanted to, you could create a secondary line to make it even all the way. So here we'll do that. So with this way, when you're cutting with the blade, you're going to cut that line. And then when you're filing, you're creating that roundness. So you want to be able to go a little bit lower. So there's that. We'll turn it around and create the same thing. And then every once in a while, you're going to take the wax off and make sure that you haven't crossed over that line on one side where you had it on the other side. So now I've got it on both sides. Let's go back to where I cut in. There it is. Set it down. So now I'm going to just follow that line. And I'm right on the line. I'm not off the line. I'm actually on that line. Because if I sway it a little to the right or left, it won't really matter. I'm going to file it out and smooth it out. But by doing this, it's just saving you a lot of filing time. And I'm just trying to get a full stroke, up, down, from here all the way down, and keeping it nice and steady and turning the wax as I go. Now the question is, did I follow the line? Well, on this side, I'm pretty close. I'm on that line pretty close. See that? That's good. That means I'm straight up and down. I'm not one way or the other. I'm going to get this 3/4 of the way. I'm going to give it to you to finish. Is that all right?
Yep, that sounds great.
I'm turning the ring very, very, very slowly so that I, almost like I don't have those flat spots that we talked about before. When you're filing, we don't want to have any flat spots. I am right on the line. And by not applying too much pressure, if I go off the line a little bit, I can correct by turning the blade and getting back on the line. So I think that's about 3/4. So I'm gonna leave it in there. I'm gonna let you finish it.
Are your glasses?
Yep, you can use these visors. And this is the way you tighten the visor, right here. So you put it on your head and then tighten it. You're gonna love those.
I can see.
Yeah, I know. Now look, your angle of that blade is this way. I'm gonna get straight up and down, right?
But I can't see.
What's the wax called that you're using?
This is curve wax. I'll get, no, it's actually not. Hold on, I'll show you. This is called Ferris. It's a round tube wax, and it comes in 3 different colors: green, blue, and purple. The blue is softest. The blue is softer, which is more gummy, but it has a purpose, but I don't use it very often. The purple is harder, which means that it's more brittle. There's a chance that an edge could come off, but also when you're filing it, it's harder to file, so it takes longer. This would take the least amount of time, but it can tie up. Does it come off? Look at that, you did it. All the way. Show everybody what you cut off here. So that's all the way off, all the way around. So now instead of having to do that with a file, you just took all that off evenly all the way around. And now it's time to start filing it. You can keep the visor on if you'd like, and you're gonna file down to here. You're gonna file down to that line. Here's your file. So you might put it on your finger, like you did the other one, or you might want to line it up here on the whichever is better for you. So there's the blue wax in a tube to make greens. One of the styles for the green wax, green is what I use 90% of the time. And then this is a purple wax. This is the hardest, this is the medium, and this is the softest. They're all pretty hard. It's, if you took my fingernail and you scratch, you really can't scratch it. So it's pretty hard wax. It's not like what you would think. Hear that? So there is some scratches on that where I didn't do it on the blue. Little bit, but you can't do that on the purple at all, pretty much. it doesn't, it shows a line, but it doesn't take any of the material. It just takes longer. This is another wax. This wax is called matte, M-A-T-T, matte wax. All right, so you'd open it up. And there's my tooth. I don't have a preference on one or the other. I use them both. I use several. I have lots and lots of wax. But you can find that tube only cost about, well, it used to be $5 or $6. Even if it was $10 now, think about it. You can probably make 20 rings. And that's less than $1 a ring in material. We're going to be creating a video and showing every tool that we're using. And this sandpaper stick is wonderful. And we actually make these sandpaper sticks up ourselves. So we're going to give a demonstration on how to make this out of just a little stick, almost like a ruler, taping it, folding it around. And once it gets all covered in material, you can just tear it right there, and there's fresh material underneath it. And you go all the way around. You can just keep doing that all the way until you get to the end. Then on the inside, watch this. So I took that material off. Now I can take this and I can use my inside ring sander, and I can take a piece off and put it on my inside ring sander. And then I will show you what that is. If I can find it. There it is. So there's already a piece on there. And that was just a piece I took off. So you can just take the piece that you just took off, put this on a flex shaft, bends around, and then you can sand the inside of a ring that you can't get to with the excess. If you're doing this with gold, when you're all done, this paper will all have gold dust in it. So you want to save that paper in a special place. You save all your filings in gold and sanding and everything, because you can send that into a refiner and get enough gold to pay for everything. After it builds up a while. How do you like that visor?
I like that a lot. All of a sudden I feel 10 years younger.
The only negative about a visor is over time it can give you a headache. So you wear it for when you're doing this and that's it, you know. But it looks great. It looks really good. I do agree. The visor, you can see any little things.
Yeah, it makes it much easier.
Yep. Yep, it's nice and rounded. It's really pretty. So let me see how thick we got it. So here you've gone down to the line, and here the line is still there. Right, so that line is still there. See it right there? Where here it's just a tiny bit past it. So we want to go a little bit more on that side. And same thing. That frosted line is the line that we put in from the divider. So just keep, I would angle it and take 1 or 2 strokes all the way around, turn around, do the same thing, and then we can start sanding it already. That was fast. Imagine cutting that piece off with the saw, just cut your work in half. That's a really good way to do it, what you're doing. The better stability you have with the bench pin, the less risk it's gonna curve in your fingers and cause a mistake. I'd love to show you how to fix a mistake. So let me demonstrate that after, not right now, but afterwards. I'm going to show you something that you'll love. If you notice, anybody watching, she's keeping that file moving. That's keeping it from having any flat spots on the wax, which is really good. And you don't necessarily have to hold it in your hand or on the side of the bench pin or whatever way is more comfortable for you to make sure everything flows real well. Good. Now we got to do the inside. How does that look now? I think that looks fantastic. Both sides look equally. I don't see a lower. Let me see your file for a second. So as I'm turning this, I just see right here, it's a little higher on this side than it is on this side. So just a tiny little bit. So just inspect it like that. I think it looks good, and let's sand it. So we're gonna use, I cleaned off, I put a new piece on here, and you can start sanding it. Now if you notice, we have not used a flex shaft today. So if somebody wanted to do this and not have the expense of a flex shaft, which may be $100 or $200 for a flex shaft depending on which style you buy. All these tools, you should be able to get all these tools for maybe $100. Everything. They have a bench pin that has a little crank, not like this, but it's a little crank that can be attached to a desk. It's very inexpensive, maybe $20, $15. We'll show some of those in the links of the tools and where you can buy them. We can put them all together for you. There are some things that you can use to make it go faster. It could also mess it up faster. So doing it in this process, it may take a little bit longer, but you're being safer and you're learning the way to do it. When I apprenticed years ago, he said, "You need to be Michael Jordan." And I said, "What are you talking about, Michael Jordan?" And he said, "Well, Michael Jordan had to shoot free throws 1,000 a day." And he's like, "I don't need to do that." And the coach said, "I don't care whether you think you're the best player in the world. You need to shoot 1,000 free throws a day," so that he never missed. And that the goal is, the more you practice, the better you become. Good? I think that looks really good. Now we're going to cut the inside out. So we're going to go back to the file. I want you to use the less aggressive. This is too aggressive. The less aggressive, and I want you to do what you did on the first band, and that is to create that edge all the way around.
So do we want to mark that? With the...
Yep, you did on the last one, so that's what we should do. Let's go ahead and make that pretty small. Maybe by eye, it's about 1 millimeter. You can measure it. Here, let's do it up here for stability wise, as far as cutting that line. So now once you start cutting that line on the inside of the file, you're going to cut all the way to the line, not shy of the line, but you can cut right till you don't see the line anymore.
I want to use the non.
That's right.
Not as aggressive.
That's the right side. So if you notice what she's doing here, she's colding this wax at an angle so that it's going to create a comfort fit inside the wax. Now if you wanted it to be a little bit more comfort fit, after you do that side, you could go back to the first one and change the angle of the file a little bit so it goes deeper into the center of the ring. When you're done, you show me. You show me and tell me. I'll see. Alright, let me take a look. Nope. So it's a little deeper right there, a little bit more than it is everywhere else. A little less here. So what I can mention is, and so you did the first line here, and if you wanted to go in deeper, you change the angle. So bring the band up a little bit, and then see how now it's in a little further. So do the secondary line. It's just an imaginary line all the way around, and that's going to be rounding it on the inside. You see that nick right there from the ring cutter when we were sizing it. You play with it a little bit more, and I'm going to get the flask so we can prepare these to be cast. You need to sand the outside of it with that sandpaper. Okay, so once you feel like that's been done enough, then I want you to use the sandpaper on the outside. This will get rid of any file marks. That's great, the way you're doing it.
It feels a little more stable than holding it in the hand.
Yeah, and also you're getting more of the length of the stroke of the sanding stick, which less flat spots. I keep going back to that because a lot of times when you see a ring that's been made by hand, it won't look smooth, it'll look like little notches like that. And those notches are that they didn't round it properly. Of course, we'll do the same thing once it's cast in the gold, but you're eliminating 90% of the problems, and it's a lot easier than when it's in gold, trying to eliminate those problems. So you did one side. Now try to do the exact same thing on the other side, unless you already got it all. So one of the questions is that how do you know how much gold you're going to need to make these wedding bands? Well, there's a formula, and the formula is if you're going to make these rings in 14 karat gold, you weigh the wax, and then whatever the weight of the wax is, you multiply it times 14.5. So if it weighs, let's say it weighs, I'll get my calculator up. Let's say this wax weighs 0.3. So 0.3 times 14.5 is going to weigh 4.5 grams of gold. If it weighs 0.8 times 14.5, it's going to weigh 11 grams of gold. So we need to know how much gold to use when we're casting it. So what we'll do is we'll weigh both bands together, get a total weight, and then we need to add 50% more to push the metal into the casting. That 50% more comes back to you.
Then
Or-
you wait after you sprue it, do your sprues on it?
That 50% more is to cover the weight of the sprue.
Okay.
Right. And that's where we attach them. Now, I think that it might be good for me to use a flex shaft and show you something. You want to switch? I'm going to use a flex shaft, and I'm also going to damage your ring that you just made. And watch what I do. You're going to love this. Maybe you won't love it. All right? Let's say you were filing along, and you went, oh no, and you cut this big gouge. Look how bad that is. Right? Can you see that gouge in the camera? So this is Perfect Purple Wax by Kerr. This is so hard to find. It's crazy. But this is called buildup wax. So I can use a Max wax pen, and when you press the button, it gets hot right here. You're going to see smoke. There's the smoke. I'll get a little bit of this wax, this buildup wax. And I'm gonna heat it up and then touch it. Watch this. Flows right in, and now it's fixed. Right? And with 1 or 2 strokes, it never happened. It's gone. Never happened. But this is something good to know, so that if you had to cut a ring down, this ring is a 1/4 size too big that we made earlier. So we're going to cut it down. I'm not even measuring. I know that we're going to just take a tiny bit out. So now I took a tiny bit out. I'm going to put it back together. I'll tack it in place. Now it's tacked in place. So now it's ready to go. And now I'm going to use this curd wax and I'm going to it's like solder. Now it's going to be a size 5 again instead of, now I'm going to go down with that right into it. So watch, it's going to cut right into it. See that? That way you're filling the crack all the way through. And do the same thing on the inside. And then we're going to measure what the measurement is, because now it's going to be a 5 instead of 5 1/4. So now I've sealed it. Now I'll use a little buildup. Touch. Buildup's already there on that one. And buildup's already there on that one. So now, go right back to the way you did it before. Put it on top. Look at that. It's gone. Just like, I mean, I barely touched it to smooth it out. This wax is much softer than the green wax. So it files off super easy. Now we're going to round the inside and get that extra off. I'm barely holding this. I'm just trying to hold it in place so I can get that excess off. And let's measure it. We want it to be a 5. And it was a 5 1/4. No, it's a 5. How awesome is that? It is really great. And it's a 5. And this one, you made a 10. And we're almost to the 10, which is just fine, because we're going to, once we hammer it round, once it's in metal, vibrations will expand it just a little bit and it'll be perfect. All right, so now, I said I was going to show you something, and this is what I'm going to show you. Now this is the flex shaft, and I took this strip off of the sanding stick, and I put it on. I'm going to step on the pedal after it's in the groove, wraps around, and now I'm going to sand the inside. Now you could take a piece of sandpaper and you could sand the inside by hand. You don't have to use a flex shaft, but this is just going to save time. I'm turning the ring as I'm doing it. And this is getting those file marks out of the inside. Turn it over. It's also creating a slight comfort fit, because I'm not holding it this way, I'm holding it this way at that angle. Now, do you want to sign these rings?
I haven't done that before.
Well, when I was a kid, I wanted tools that they didn't make. So I made my own tools, and what I did was I got a dowel at Home Depot and I drilled a hole, and I went to the bicycle store and I got bicycle spokes, and I hammered the bicycle spokes into different shapes so that I could make different things using, so they're not very pretty looking, but this is like a little blade, and you can tip it over and you can engrave your initials in there. But because it's a wedding band, they might want their initials engraved in there. Yeah. So why don't we wait and talk to them about it? But we need to sand the inside of this one because it's just been filed and not sanded. So let's do that. And then we're going to sprue it up. And spruing it up, you made both bands. So if it's okay with you, I'll sprue it up. I'll show you how we do it. I'm just reaming it out, getting out any file marks. Because if you have to do this in gold, it takes twice as long or 10 times as long, and you're losing metal. All right. So you want to inspect those two. You know what I'm going to do is let me go weigh these two, and sometimes instead of filing it, I may do that too. Instead of using it as a sandpaper stick. But now that you have that visor on, you might want to go back to this one and tune it up a little bit more. Let me weigh the two real fast, and then we know how much we need when we're setting up the flask. You can have a seat. It weighs 0.7 grams. So that's going to be about 10 grams of gold in my head. But we'll do the math. The only thing I forgot is we needed this to be 4 millimeters. So you want to measure that out and see if we need to make it any thinner? Put it up here if you can. So we're almost 5. See that? See that right here? So we need to file it like you did the other one. You do 10 strokes on one side, 10 on the other side. We're going to move this out of the way so it doesn't get hit. By doing that, again, it's going to make the ring look thicker because you ringed it down. And that line that you traced, any lines or scratches that are on the side are all going to go away now. Where are we at?
I think we're still doing a little more.
Okay. That looks pretty good, isn't it? You have the visor on. I don't have the visor on. How close is that? That looks pretty darn close. Let me see.
I'm using only my glasses. That's why I can't see as well.
We're at 4.5. See? 4.5. So we want to go a little bit more. We want to go down to about 4.25. So let's do again, maybe 10 on each side. Four and a quarter is what we want to shoot for, because after it's cast, we'll file it and sand it and buff it, and that'll bring it down to the 4. That looks good. Good? All right. All right, so the next step we're going to do is, actually, I want you to sand that. Sand both sides. any chance you get to sand it, you're sanding out any file marks that would be cast into gold. So any file marks at all will show up in the gold. So if we can sand them out, you're just saving yourself some work. Okay? All right, so let's switch spots and I'm going to show you something. This is sprue wax. This is sticky wax. This is sprue wax. Now, before I do this, I'm going to do something that I like to do. And that is, this is steel wool. And steel wool is going to make this as smooth as possible. And it's actually going to make the wax become shiny. See that? It's taking out any fine lines, even that the sandpaper may have created. Now the reason why I'm not having you do this is because I'm bearing down and you wouldn't want to break the wax. So I didn't want you to have to deal with that. Yeah, start from scratch or deal with it. So if you remember, it was kind of like a satin finish, and now it's more of a polished finish. So the steel wool is polished, and you can even see that cut that we made in purple. It's not visible, you can't feel it, but you can see the purple. It's the purple wax. So I'm going around twice. I'm not going to do the sides, I'm just doing the top. Do the same thing on this one. Now this steel wool is too coarse. You can get double or triple zero or quadruple zero. I usually use triple zero, and I have that at my shop at the store. And I don't have it here, so I'm using this that isn't as smooth. But if you used finer sandpaper, steel wool, it would make it even shinier. But here's what we're going to do. I have to light this torch. Sometimes it pops. So if it pops, we just start it over again. So I have to set this up. Now think of this like a tree trunk, all right? And I'm creating, this is the tree trunk, and these rings are gonna be the branches in the tree. So first off, I'm going to put some sticky wax down. And then I'm going to stick this right in the center of that sticky wax. And now we're up. I'm going to use this spatula, and I'm going to get more wax. I'm actually cutting into the ring with the hot pick. Now it's attached. Now I still want to add a little more to make sure it's firm. not need these. Now, if you didn't have the ability to cast it yourself, you could send the wax just like this to Zero Porosity in Massachusetts, and they would cast it for you. Basically, they would be doing what I'm doing. But we do have the ability to do it. We have our own casting equipment. Now we're going to take some more sticky wax. Can't use too little sticky wax. I'm going to put some on here. And now this is a branch of the tree, right, that I mentioned. I'm going to make that branch a little shorter. So I made it shorter. And I'm going to heat it up and attach it. And I'll just hold it there for a second or two. Literally, it's a second or two. Now, a little more sticky wax is always good. I always say you don't have enough. You never have too much. All right, one branch is done. Now we're going to do the other one. Take some sticky wax, put it on the band. I'm actually melting it into the band. And then I'm going to attach the sprue, or it's attached. So that's going to be the second branch. You can cut it off with my fingernail. Remember I said we have to have fingernails, right? People always think, you must be a mechanic, you have dirty fingers. And it's like, you know what? I'm not a mechanic. But I do work with my hands. Now I'm just melting that sticky wax in and around. So there's a nice, and it's a nice flow. Because remember, gold is going to shoot up inside and fill this cavity. So this process is called the lost wax process. And it's going to melt these waxes that you carved. And then when we pour in the molten gold, it'll fill into the cavity. And you will have 2 gold rings instead of 2 wax rings. A little more sticky wax. And there it is. So now this tree could have 100 branches and hundreds of rings all over it. And when you cast it, you put it in a flask like this, and when it melts out, all the wax will melt out, and then you pour molten gold in the top, and it'll fill both rings, and then they'll be gold. And you might know that already, but some of the viewers might not know that. So now you see there's a little ledge right there. I want to make that go away, so I made it go away just like that. And the reason I want it to go away is because I want to make sure that this wax flows out easily and the gold flows in easily so that there's no error. And down here, you see down here where that sticky wax is? I need to add more sticky wax around there so it's a nice flow for the gold to shoot in when it's casting. Now, one of the ways to make sure these two are not going to break off or get damaged is I put a little sticky wax right in the middle of the 2 of them. And as I said before, you can't really use too much. So I'm just gonna put some right here. Now, remember, anything that's in wax will be in gold. So this whole piece could be gold here and here in the ring, and here and here in the ring. And then after it's cast into gold, then we'll cut it off here and here and clean it up, and you'll have two finished wedding bands. Now, if you put the flask over the top and you say, oh, it's too high, let me go get a flask. And I've got to fill this up, and let me go get a flask, and then we're ready to invest it. We've got to make up the investment. Looks like I've gotten low on oxygen, or run out of oxygen. It's taking a little longer to heat. So I want to get rid of this little bubble, because that bubble would be a bubble in gold. So we want to make sure it flows really well. And everything looks good. And we're ready to go. So let me go get the cover for the flask, and then we make up the investment and get it ready to cast. Okay, so now this is the cover. So if you notice, it's open here, and on the top it's not open, but we'll be able to pour the investment. So we're gonna go like this, cover it. We can just hold it in our hand, make it fit. There we go. And you can see the waxes inside. They're perfect. They're right at halfway point, or halfway between here. You see that? You see them inside? And then when you look down, you can see them inside. So that's why I said you could have all these branches of wax that would all be gold rings. You could fill that whole area. But now when I pour investment in, it's gonna all come out through these holes. So I have to cover that. So we're gonna cover that with this top. And we'll pour investment in. Investment is like plaster Paris. It hardens like a rock in about an hour. But anything that is in wax, it covers over it, hardens like a rock. We put it in an oven and raise the temperature over 8 hours of time. We raise the temperature to 2,000 degrees. And while the temperature is raising to 2,000 degrees, the wax will melt out of that hole in the bottom of that tree trunk. And when the wax all melts out, it evaporates. It just burns up and evaporates. And then you take the flask, you turn it over, and you pour the molten gold, and it fills anything that was in wax is now cast into gold. So this is going to be 2 gold rings very shortly. So that's it for the day. The next time we do this, we will be casting this into gold. But we're not going to set up the investment right now because we don't have the gold yet. Right? But we're ready to go. So congratulations.
All right. Thank you so much, Jerry. It was
All right.
fantastic.
All right, you did a good job. I think that I'm going to take this out so we can get another look at it. But I think that that we're good to go. And then when we cast it, it's going to look exactly like the sprue that I showed you, but it'll all be in gold. I'm trying not to. There we go. All right, so there we go. That's it. We're done. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. And the next time you see this, we're going to do this again, either next Tuesday or Thursday. We'll let you know. It'll be posted. And we will be casting it. I have a casting room. We're going to cast it into gold. You'll watch the casting process after it's been heated to 2,000 degrees. And we will cast it into gold. Then we'll bring it in here and file it, sand it, buff it, clean it up, and they'll be done. Thank you. Bye-bye.